In this very moment, something is moving through the darkness of our solar system that defies every law of physics we thought we understood. For decades, we have looked at the stars and wondered if we are alone. But the real question isn't whether life exists out there. The real question is, what did NASA find that made them stop looking at the ocean and start looking exclusively at the stars? There is a specific point in history where the focus of global agencies shifted entirely, and the records from that era remain some of the most guarded secrets in human history. Think about the sheer scale of the universe. We are living on a tiny pebble drifting through an infinite void. But what happens when that void looks back? What happens when the sensors on a billion-dollar probe pick up something that shouldn't exist? Today, we are diving into the chilling truth behind the most classified discoveries in space history, the anomalies that keep astronauts awake at night, and the terrifying reason why NASA might be hiding the true nature of what lies beyond our atmosphere. To understand the scale of what we are dealing with, we have to go back to the early days of the Voyager missions. These probes were our eyes and ears in the deep dark, sent out to capture the majesty of the outer planets. But as Voyager 2 approached the edge of our solar system, something happened that was never fully explained to the public. The probe began sending back data streams that weren't just corrupted, they were organized. It was as if something was trying to communicate using our own technology as a medium. Engineers at Mission Control were baffled. They saw patterns that mirrored DNA sequences and mathematical constants that a random cosmic ray couldn't possibly generate. The official report cited a hardware glitch, a 1 in a million error caused by deep space radiation. But those who were in the room say something different. They say the data stream lasted for hours and contained a map of a coordinate system that doesn't point to any known star. This was the first hint that the vacuum of space is not as empty as we have been led to believe. As we move closer to home, we find the strange case of the Black Knight satellite. Now, many people dismiss this as space junk or a thermal blanket lost during a mission. But if you look at the internal memos from the early 60s, long before we had a significant presence in orbit, radar operators were picking up a massive object in a polar orbit. This is significant because, at that time, neither the United States nor the Soviet Union had the technology to put a satellite into a polar orbit. It requires a level of energy and precision that we simply hadn't mastered yet. This object was estimated to weigh over 15 tons. For comparison, the satellites we were launching back then were the size of a basketball. When the first high-resolution photos were taken by the space shuttle crews, the images showed an object that looked organic, yet metallic. It had a surface that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. When astronauts tried to move closer, their electronics experienced massive interference. NASA quickly moved those files to a restricted server. But the questions remain. Who put it there, and how long has it been watching us? The moon is another place where the official narrative starts to crumble under the weight of the evidence. We are told we stopped going to the moon because it was too expensive and there was nothing left to learn. But does that really make sense? We have spent hundreds of billions on the International Space Station and Mars rovers, yet we haven't touched the lunar surface with a human foot in half a century. During the Apollo missions, there were several instances where the lunar modules recorded seismic activities that were rhythmic. When the spent stages of the rockets were crashed into the moon's surface to test its composition, the moon rang like a bell for over an hour. This suggests a hollow structure, or at least a density that doesn't match a natural planetary body. But the most disturbing report came from the far side of the moon. This is the side that never faces Earth, the side that remains in permanent shadow from our perspective. Satellite imagery from the Clementine mission showed structures that didn't look like craters. They looked like excavations, huge geometric shapes that stretched for miles across the lunar plains. When these images were released to the public, large sections were blurred out. When asked why, the response was a standard concern for national security. What could possibly be on the moon that affects the national security of Earth? Maybe it's not what's on the moon, but what is coming from it. In recent years, pilots and naval officers have reported unidentified aerial phenomena that seem to enter and exit the ocean at incredible speeds. These objects move in ways that ignore inertia. They can go from a standstill to thousands of miles per hour in a heartbeat. But what many people don't know is that these objects are often tracked by space-based sensors first. They are seen entering our atmosphere from deep space, often originating from the direction of the asteroid belt or the outer moons of Jupiter. This brings us to the mysterious moon of Europa. NASA has been obsessed with Europa for a long time, and for good reason. It has a global ocean hidden beneath a thick crust of ice. They tell us they are looking for microbial life, but leaked internal documents suggest they found something much larger long ago. In the late 90s, a probe passing by Europa captured an infrared signature that wasn't a geothermal vent. It was a moving heat source, miles long, navigating through the subsurface ocean. The signature showed a complex internal structure, something that would require a massive amount of energy to maintain in the freezing depths. Shortly after this discovery, the mission's funding was redirected, and the public data was scrubbed. We also have to look at the Great Attractor. This is a gravitational anomaly in intergalactic space that is pulling our entire galaxy and thousands of others toward it at millions of miles per hour. It's located in a region of space known as the zone of avoidance because it's obscured by the dust and gas of our own Milky Way. When astronomers finally managed to peer through the dust using X-ray and infrared telescopes, they found something they couldn't explain. It wasn't just a massive cluster of galaxies. It was a concentrated point of mass, so dense and so large that it challenges our understanding of how the universe is structured. But it's not the mass itself that's scary. It's the way the galaxies are moving toward it. It's not a natural drift. It looks like a flow. It looks like everything in our local universe is being pulled toward a specific destination. Some theorists suggest it's not a natural phenomenon at all, but a massive engineering project on a scale we can't even dream of. A cosmic vacuum, pulling in matter for a purpose we are too primitive to understand. Perhaps the most terrifying discovery is the one that involves our own sun. We see it every day as a source of life and warmth, but NASA's solar observatories have been catching things that don't belong in the solar atmosphere. We are talking about objects the size of Earth that appear to be tethered to the sun, staying there for days at a time despite the immense heat and gravity. These objects move away at speeds that nothing man-made could achieve. Are they refueling? Are they extracting energy directly from the plasma? If there are civilizations capable of using a star as a gas station, then we are not even on their radar. We are like ants living on the side of a highway, unaware of the massive trucks passing by. This leads us to the Fermi paradox. If the universe is so big and so old, why haven't we heard from anyone? The scary answer is that maybe we have, but the message wasn't a greeting. Throughout the history of radio astronomy, there have been hundreds of signals that were caught and then never heard again. The most famous is the WOW signal, but there are others that are even more complex. In the mid-2000s, a signal was detected coming from a void in space where no stars exist. It was a repetitive mathematical sequence that lasted for several weeks before vanishing. When scientists tried to locate the source, they found nothing, just empty space. It was as if something was broadcasting from the nothingness itself. Some believe that these signals are the remnants of civilizations that are no longer there, but others believe they are warnings. A signal sent out to tell others to stay away from certain regions of the void. Now, let's talk about the WOW signal in more detail and why it's more than just a mystery. It wasn't just a spike in a graph. It was a signal that perfectly matched the profile of what we would expect from an artificial source. It was at the frequency of hydrogen, the most common element in the universe, which is exactly where we would look for a sign of intelligence. But the most disturbing part is that it has never been repeated. In the world of science, if you can't replicate a result, it doesn't exist. But in the world of intelligence and observation, a one-time event can be the most important thing you ever see. It was like a flash in the dark, a single word shouted into the night. What if the reason it was never repeated is because whatever sent it realized we were listening? What if they didn't want to be found? There is also the concept of the Great Filter. This is a theory that there is a barrier that prevents life from becoming a spacefaring, multiplanetary civilization. We don't know if the filter is behind us or ahead of us. If we find evidence of life on Mars or Europa, it actually means we are in trouble. It means that life is common, but advanced life is rare, which implies that something eventually wipes out everyone before they can leave their home system. This is why some people within NASA are terrified of what the rovers might find. Finding a fossil on Mars would be the worst news in human history, because it would mean the Great Filter is likely ahead of us, waiting to finish us off. But what if the filter isn't a natural event? What if it's a conscious force? There have been rumors for decades about the so-called galactic zoo hypothesis. This suggests that we are being kept in a sort of quarantine until we reach a certain level of development. But there is a darker version of this, the dark forest theory. In this scenario, the universe is like a dark forest at night. Every civilization is an armed hunter creeping through the trees. They don't know who else is out there, but they know that anyone they meet could be a threat. Therefore, the safest thing to do is to remain silent and to eliminate anyone who makes a noise. We have been broadcasting our location to the stars for a century. We have been shouting into the dark forest, unaware of the hunters. If this theory is true, then the most dangerous thing we ever did was launch the Voyager probes with maps showing exactly how to find Earth. Every astronaut who has gone into space has come back changed. Small, geometric shapes on the Martian surface, flashes of light in the middle of empty space, and structures that look suspiciously like ruins. There is a specific mountain on Mars, known as Mount Sharp. In some of the early unedited photos, there appear to be openings in the rock that are perfectly rectangular. In the later versions released to the public, those openings are filled in with textures that don't match the surrounding stone. Why go to the trouble of hiding a rock formation unless it's not a rock formation? There is also the matter of the vanishes. Every year, satellites and astronomical instruments just stop working for no reason. Not just old ones, but brand new, state-of-the-art equipment. We have lost contact with probes that were in perfect health just seconds before. The official explanations are always technical failures, but some believe these probes were intercepted. If we are sending out devices to spy on the neighborhood, eventually the neighbors are going to notice. There is a theory that there is a perimeter around our solar system, a point beyond which our technology isn't allowed to pass. The Kuiper Belt, the massive ring of icy objects at the edge of our system, might be more than just debris. It could be a barrier. Some of the objects in the Kuiper Belt have orbits that don't make sense. They are being influenced by something massive that we haven't seen yet. This is the search for Planet 9, a theoretical world 10 times the size of Earth. But what if it's not a planet? What if it's something much more artificial? When we think about the scariest thing NASA found, we usually think of monsters or aliens. But the reality might be much more existential. The scariest thing they might have found is the truth about our place in the universe. We like to think of ourselves as the masters of our domain, the peak of evolution. But what if we are just a side effect? What if the universe is teeming with life that is so far beyond us that we don't even register as alive to them? Think about how we look at a hive of bees. We might study them. We might take their honey. But we don't talk to them. We don't explain our politics or our technology to them because they can't understand it. We are the bees in this scenario. We are watching the masters of the universe move around us, and we are catching glimpses of their technology, but we don't have the capacity to understand what we are seeing. This brings us to the mysterious James Webb Space Telescope. It was built to see back to the very beginning of time, to the first stars and galaxies. And since it became operational, the data has been coming in fast. But there has also been an unusual amount of secrecy regarding some of its findings. There are reports that Webb has detected atmospheres around distant planets that contain chemicals that can only be produced by industrial processes. These aren't just moons with water. These are worlds with smog, with lights on their dark sides. If NASA has seen city lights on a planet 50 light-years away, they wouldn't tell us right away. They would have to figure out how to frame that information so it doesn't cause a global panic. Imagine the impact on religion, on politics, on the economy. If we knew for a fact that there was a more advanced civilization nearby, everything we do would suddenly feel meaningless. The silence of NASA is not necessarily malicious, but it is definitely protective. They are the gatekeepers of the most important information in human history. They determine what we are ready to know. But should they have that power? We are the ones who fund these missions. We are the ones who look at the stars and dream of what's out there. The anomalies they find, from the strange pulses of the pulsars to the impossible structures on the moon, belong to all of us. There is a sense of urgency now. Private companies are going to space at an increasing rate. The monopoly on space information is ending. Soon a private rover will land on the moon, or a private telescope will see something that NASA has been hiding. And when that happens, the curtains will be pulled back for good. One of the most compelling pieces of evidence for something being hidden is the sudden change in the way we talk about UFOs or UAPs. For 70 years, the government's stance was that it was all nonsense, weather balloons and swamp gas. But then, almost overnight, they admitted that these things are real, that they are in our airspace, and that we don't know what they are. Why the sudden shift? It's because the technology we have now makes it impossible to hide the truth anymore. Too many people have high-definition cameras. Too many pilots have advanced radar, and too many independent researchers are watching the skies. They had to admit to the existence of these things before they were caught in a lie that they couldn't recover from. But even now, they are only telling us the bare minimum. They are keeping the most disturbing parts hidden in the classified sections of their reports. What are those disturbing parts? It could be the fact that these objects have been seen entering the water near nuclear carrier groups. It could be the fact that they have been observed shutting down our nuclear missile sites in the middle of the desert. There are documented cases where UFOs hovered over silos and the missiles went offline. Then, as soon as the object left, the missiles came back online. This isn't just curiosity. This is a demonstration of power. It's a message that says, we can disable your most powerful weapons whenever we want. If the public knew that our entire national defense could be neutralized by a single object from space, the government would lose all its authority. The deeper we look, the more we find that the history of space exploration is not what it seems. From the lost cosmonauts of the Soviet era who allegedly floated off into the void, to the strange shadow found on the surface of Phobos, one of the moons of Mars. Phobos is a strange enough object on its own. It's tiny, it's shaped like a potato, and it's orbiting so close to Mars that it will eventually be torn apart. But in 1989, a Soviet probe called Phobos 2 was approaching the moon when it captured an image of a thin, cigar-shaped shadow on the surface. The shadow was stationary, but there was nothing in the sky above the moon that could have cast it. Moments after the photo was sent back, the probe was destroyed by what looked like an impact from an object that moved too fast to be seen. The mission was a total loss, and the Soviet government never gave a clear explanation of what happened. The scariest thing NASA ever found might be the realization that we are not the first. There are structures in our solar system that look like they are billions of years old. There are ruins on Mars that were weathered by winds that haven't blown for eons. If a civilization lived in our solar system before us, what happened to them? Did they leave? Or did they meet an end that we are currently heading toward? The universe is a graveyard of civilizations that didn't make it. Every time we find a new planet that could support life, we are also looking at a potential tomb. The silence of the stars is not just an empty space. It's a warning. As we continue to send out our messages and our probes, we have to ask ourselves if we are ready for the answer. We want to find friends, but what if we find something else? What if the reason NASA won't talk about what they found is because the truth is too much for the human psyche to handle? What if they discovered that our reality is not what we think it is? There have been experiments in quantum physics that suggest the act of observing something changes its behavior. If that's true on a cosmic scale, then by looking at the universe, we are changing it. And maybe the things that live in the dark don't want to be changed. Maybe they want to stay in the shadows, and our meddling is starting to get their attention. The journey into space is the greatest adventure we have ever undertaken, but it's also the most dangerous. Not because of the vacuum or the radiation, but because of what we might find. The anomalies are there, hidden in the data, blurred out in the photos, and whispered about in the halls of mission control. The black night, the moving heat signatures on Europa, the geometric ruins on the moon, and the objects tethered to the sun. These aren't just stories, they are data points in a larger pattern that points to a reality we are not being told about. NASA is a civilian agency, but it is tied to the military and the intelligence community in ways that are deeply buried. We have to keep asking questions. We have to keep looking at the raw data and the unedited photos. Because the truth is out there, and it's not just about aliens or technology. It's about who we are and where we came from. If we were put here, or if we are being watched, or if we are just one of many, it changes everything. The scariest thing NASA ever found isn't a monster in a crater. It's the certainty that we are not alone in a universe that is far more crowded and far more dangerous than we ever imagined. And as we move forward into this new era of space exploration, we have to be prepared for the moment when the silence finally ends and the true scale of the universe is revealed to us. Until then, we watch the skies. We look for the flashes of light that shouldn't be there. We listen for the signals that don't make sense. And we remember that even if they aren't talking, the evidence is right in front of us. The darkness of space is full of secrets, and every mission we launch brings us one step closer to a truth that might change us forever. But for now, the records remain locked away, the images remain blurred, and the questions remain unanswered. But you can feel it, can't you? The sense that everything is about to change, the sense that we are on the verge of a discovery that will dwarf everything that came before. The stars are waiting, and whatever is hiding among them won't stay hidden forever. The focus on the moon specifically has seen a massive resurgence lately, not just from NASA with the Artemis missions, but also from China, India, and private entities. There is a literal race back to the lunar surface. Why now? Why the frantic rush to establish a permanent presence on a rock we ignored for 50 years? Some insiders suggest that the anomalies first spotted in the 60s have been confirmed to be moving or expanding. There is a sense that something on the moon is waking up. If there is ancient technology there, the first nation to harness it would become the dominant power on Earth. This isn't just about exploration. It's about a cosmic gold rush. But instead of gold, they are looking for the secrets of the ancients or the technology of the observers. When you look at the footage from the ISS, you often see small, white orbs moving in the background. Skeptics call them ice crystals or dust. But ice crystals don't make 90-degree turns at thousands of miles an hour. They don't stop, hover, and then accelerate out of frame. These objects are clearly under intelligent control, and they are everywhere. They are in the upper atmosphere, they are in the deep oceans, and they are in the empty space between worlds. NASA's silence on these orbs is one of the most glaring parts of the cover-up. They have thousands of hours of footage of these objects, yet they never mention them in their public briefings. It's the elephant in the room that everyone is pretending not to see. There is a theory called the simulation hypothesis, which suggests that our entire universe is a computer simulation created by a more advanced civilization. If this were true, then the anomalies we see in space might be glitches in the code, a star that shouldn't exist, a signal that has no source, or an object that defies the laws of physics. These would be the cracks in the walls of our prison. NASA's job in this scenario would be to patch those cracks and to keep the inhabitants of the simulation from realizing the truth. It sounds like science fiction, but some of the brightest minds in physics are taking this idea seriously. If space is not a physical place but a generated environment, then the things NASA has found might be a glimpse behind the curtain. Regardless of what the truth is, the fact remains that we are being kept in the dark about our own neighborhood. We are told the stories they want us to hear, and we are shown the images they want us to see. But the universe is too big to be completely contained. The truth is leaking out, one leaked document and one unexplained photo at a time. We are the generation that might finally get the answers. Whether we are ready for them or not is a different question. The scariest thing NASA found is not just an object or a signal. It's the realization that the universe is far more complex, far more populated, and far more mysterious than we were ever taught in school. So, as we look up at the night sky, we should do so with a sense of wonder, but also with a sense of caution. The stars are beautiful, but they are also distant and indifferent, and whatever is moving between them is operating on a timeline and a scale that we can barely comprehend. We are just beginning our journey, and we have so much to learn. But the first step to understanding the truth is to admit that we are being lied to. Once we accept that, we can start to look for the real answers ourselves. The evidence is there, the anomalies are real, and the silence from the authorities is the most telling evidence of all. As we conclude this deep dive, keep in mind that space is not just a destination for our rockets. It's a mirror for our own curiosity and our own fears. What we find out there will eventually define us as a species. Will we be a civilization that hides from the truth? Or will we be the ones who step out into the light and join the rest of the cosmos? The choice is ours, but the clock is ticking. Things are happening in the void, and they are happening right now. The next mission, the next signal,